Okay, I think we're here. Oh, Manny. Ha, 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 ha. I like Tartaria, even though I know that the world has never been scarier. Trying to break over that Antarctic ice barrier. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Just wanted to say hello. We're coming up with new ways of saying hello. Everyone should come up with new ways. I used to say Happy Santa Monica, like roller skating through the beach. Not on the sand, but the path by it. Happy Santa Monica. So I thought it was pretty funny because you live in Venice Beach, Santa Monica, and everyone's just like, it's like every day's the Santa Monica holiday. Little did they know, Santa Monica was the patron saint of failed marriages and disappointing children, so it made sense. Well, we're on. Let me just set up everything that we have, make sure things are working. Again, I'm going to wait for a confirmation that you guys are hearing this okay, so that I can begin starting. Because yesterday there was, near the end, some synchronization issue. And it looks like we're okay now, but there was like a lip synchronization issue at some point. So I'll probably have to be fixing that. Is the audio working? You guys are hearing me okay? Is this loud enough? Sounding good? Does it look, I'm gonna do that again. Can you guys see that? Is the synchronization accurate? Okay, good. All right, so couple things. Thank you to Giant for setting this up. Getting the equipment necessary for this to happen. If you guys want to help out yourselves, go to exertis.com or Patreon. And Exertis, there are links here, but I'll show you anyway because that's what we do now is we show things. Someone was saying, why don't you have a what was it called? A second monitor. And I was like, well, And they basically came up with the correct answer, which is some people just want to watch the world burn. And that's what happened to me. Okay, anything? No, still nothing. We're going to figure this out. To window and manual. To kibosh. Seeing that? Okay, there's the kibosh window. Andreas.me. Have you guys been to Andreas.me? Pretty sweet that this exists. Actually, I don't know if you can... Can you even donate to Andreas.me? That's embarrassing. I'm going to have to set that up. But you go to exertis.com, and exertis.com has a little, it's like Patreon, but it's better. It's like a localized alternative to Patreon. Does it? Man, the site's loading slowly. This is horrible. There we go, down here. That's where it's at. I was like, this thing is not the thing. Okay, so to the 22 of you that have, Francis Hatch, for instance, thank you for helping me out because that's huge. And this is powered by GiveForms, so if you guys are trying to do something like this, go to GiveForms. It's way better than Patreon, in my opinion, but I like the company more, and there's a bunch of ways you can go about it, and that's cool. Also, patreon.com/Exertis. If you guys are trad Patreoners and you want to use Patreon, please do that. Please help me out. It's helpful to, support the bills of this thing, which are that all this is free. So good for y'all. Watching the world burn is necessary for Phoenix ignition. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's fair. I mean, we're going to get into that idea of the Babylonian magic, Babylonian religion being the relationship between the duality fighting itself. So I guess that is what people tend to believe. But all right. Starting with some of these tabs, Kizilbosh, which I think Kibosh is connected to Kizilbosh, but you go ahead and tell me if that was a mistake on my part. A diverse array of mainly Turkoman Shia militant groups that flourished in Iranian, Azerbaijan, Anatolia, Armenian highlands, the Caucasus, and Kurdistan from the late 15th century onwards. So we keep getting into this thing of late 15th century being very different than the second century after Muhammad, right? So it's funny to use the Muslim calendar is actually more practical, so because we can trust it slightly more. Isn't that funny? I think that's funny. So the Kizilbosh derives from the Turkish Kizilba, meaning redhead. The expression is derived from the distinctive 12-gored crimson headwear or tark. In Persian, a gore is a sector of curved surface or of curved surface that lies between two close lines. Okay, so Interesting. Interesting use of mathematics to describe their gored headwear. Okay, it must be an important thing that they do that. Sometimes specifically titled Hader's Crown, indicating their adherence to the 12 Imams and to the Shak Hadar, the spiritual leader. There was more to this. I feel like I might have skipped part of the most important thing here, but you understand the redhead thing and wearing a hat that Santa Claus's hat there, right? To signify that you're part of these, you follow the redheads, the red imams. The fact that they wear red when they also say that Muhammad wore green, imagine a redhead wearing green. Like, that's literally a leprechaun. I don't know, except he's probably not that short. But you get the point. Like, the colors changed. They're wearing red to emulate the hair. At one point, redheads with red hair wore green. So, the Kizilbash, 15th century, far after Muhammad, when the spiritual grandmaster of the movement, Shak Hadar, the head of the Safaviya Sufi order, organized his followers into militant groups. Connections between the Kizilbash and other religious groups and secret societies, such as the Iranian Zoroastrian Mazdaki movement in the Sasanian Empire, or its more radical offspring, the Persian Kuramites and the Turkish shamanism, have been suggested. Of these, the Kuramites were, like the Kizilbash, an early Shia Gulat group, and dressed in red, for which they were termed the Red Ones. Organization, beliefs, let's go to beliefs. The Kizilbash adhered to heterodox Shia doctrines, encouraging, that's much better. So heterodox, for those who aren't familiar, is two opposite ideas. Any opinions or doctrines at variance with an official or orthodox position, but I like to imagine it more as believing in two things from opposing sides. Shia doctrines encouraged by the early Safavi sheikhs, Hadar and his son Ishmael I, they regarded their ruler as divine figures, and so were classified as Gulat, quote, extremists by Orthodox. Gulat is used in the theology of Orthodox Shia Islam to describe some minority groups who either ascribe divine characteristics to figures of Islamic history or hold beliefs deemed deviant by mainstream Orthodox Shia theology. I'm curious about this. I like the idea of Kibosh Gulash or Kizilbat Gulat. When Tabriz was taken, there was not a single book on Twelverism amongst the Kizilbash leaders. The book of the well-known Iraqi scholar al-Hili was procured in the town library to provide religious guidance to the state. The imported Shia ulama did not participate in the formation of the Safavid religious policies during the early formation of the state. However, Gulat doctrines were later forsaken, and Arab Twelver ulama from Lebanon, Iraq, and Bahrain were imported and in increasing numbers to bolster Orthodox Twelver practices and beliefs. Okay, so now on to Spain. And, Anatolia. So next video, I should put the word Anatolia in. Things I'm thinking about. In Turkey, Orthoprax Twelver followers following Jafari jurisprudence are called Jafaris, although the Kizilbash are also Twelvers. And we're going to have to do some kind of apophenia here with Jafar. There's got to be a reason why they chose Jafar for the Aladdin movies. Their practices do not adhere to Jafari's jurisprudence. Kizilbash have a unique and complex conviction tracing back to the Kaisanites and the Kuramites. There we go. The Kuramites was one that I already looked at, and I might want to, I think this has to do with redheads as well. Yeah, the Kizilbash, redheads, a religious sect. Okay, no, that's just, is there an etymology here anywhere? Those of joyful religion. Okay, never mind. That's not the right one. But that's fine. I'll go down to the Kuramites. Okay. There was something there, though, about redheads associated with the Kuramites. I think it might just be that the Kizilbash were. The Kizilbash were a coalition of many different tribes, predominantly non-exclusively Turkic-speaking backgrounds, united in their adherence to Safari Shia Islam. So, Pan-Turkology. As Murids, sworn students of the Safavi Sikhs, the peers, which I think, is that similar? Yeah. A peer. And we get the word peer from the Arab word for peer, interestingly enough. a spiritual guide. The Kizilbash owed implicit obedience to their leaders in his capacity as their Murshid-e-Kamil, supreme spiritual director, and after the establishment of the kingdom as their Padasha, great king. The establishment of the kingdom of the kingdom thus changed the purely religious peer murid relationship into a political one. As a consequence, any of the disobedience of the Kizilbash Sufis against the order of the spiritual Grand Master became an act of treason against the king and the crime against the state. This is bug. They like to climb on touch screens. Dealing with him is making noises. It's amazing. Should turn off the sound on that thing, on the printer, touchscreen printer. Crime against the state, as was the case in 1614 when the Padasha Abbas the Great put some of his followers to death. Okay, so we looked at some of these beliefs about the Twelvers, that they were spiritualists. They believed that some of these Islamic figures were like superheroes. Gulat doctrines were later forsaken, and Arab Twelver ulama from Lebanon, Iraq, and Bahrain were imported in increasing numbers to try to fix that. So, okay, we looked at the Alevis, and I think someone had commented about the Alevites. I believe this is an important thing, and they are not over. I mean, or this is relevant to whatever comment that someone left yesterday. They're not just from Azerbaijan or Afghanistan or whatever. They are from Turkey for the most part. It looks like they're most popular in Turkey. So I could be wrong, because I see that the Azerbaijanis and Kurdish and Turks are the most common to have mentioned it on Wikipedia. I think I'm right. But, you know, I'm sure there are other places where this is common as well, or it exists as well. I just do think it's also interesting, Tartar and Didi, because as we know, the Persians remove the R's or use accents in replace of the R sound. So a Tartar as a Didi, the fathers, the Islamic socio-religious leaders. So there's that connection there. Alevism is Ali, Muhammad, Allah, right? So you start to get this idea of the super cosmology in Alevi. God is also the Al-Haq, the truth, or referred to as Allah. This came up as a rather important thing. Let me go back down to a representation of the sword of Ali, which, if you look at it the right way, also looks like a man, right? This is clearly the shape of a man. This, you know, you could call it a pair of scissors more than you could say it looks like a sword. So, like Islam, all Alevis acknowledge at least 4 scriptures revealed from heaven. Additionally, Alevis don't mind to look to other religious books outside the 4 major ones as sources for their beliefs, including hadiths, Na'ul, Balaga, and the Baruch. Alevism also acknowledges the Islamic prophet Muhammad as Paygambar. Unlike Sunnis and Shia, Alevis do not regard interpretation of the Quran today as binding or infallible. Since the true meaning of the Quran is considered to be taken as secret by Ali, it must be taught by teachers who transmit the teachings of Ali Baruch to his disciples. So, this is a very important group. We looked at some of the stuff about this yesterday, but I want to go into this a little bit deeper. This idea that the Alevis also have a smaller sect. So you're talking the Alawites, right? I think this is the Alawi, Alawis, or the Alawites, that was commented upon. And let me see if I can find their criticism. Is this right? I think this might be. Okay, so Alawi doctrines incorporate Islamic, Gnostic, Neoplatonic, Christian. For instance, they celebrate Mass, including consecration of bread and wine in the Eucharist, and other elements has therefore been described as syncretic. Reincarnation, other beliefs and practices. Is this the correct group? Because there's another group, maybe the Druze. Let's go into the Druze. The Druze are something we're gonna have to save for. I mean, I guess we can try to go into the Druze today. All right, let's just do the Druze. The Druze are members of an Arabic-speaking esoteric ethno-religious group originating in Western Asia who adhere to the faith that originally developed out of Ismaili Islam. Although most Druze do not identify as Muslims, they practice Druzism as an Abrahamic, monotheistic, syncretic, and ethnic religion based on the teachings of Hamza ibn Ali ibn Ahmad and the sixth Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim bi Amir Allah, and the ancient Greek philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and Zeno of Citium. Adherents of the Druze religion are called the people of monotheism, al-Muwahhidun. The Epistles of Wisdom is the foundation and central text of the Druze faith. The Druze faith incorporates elements of Ishmaelism, Christianity, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Pythagoreanism, and other philosophies and beliefs, creating a distinct and secretive theology based on esoteric interpretations of Scripture which emphasize the role of the mind and truthfulness. The Druze believe in theophany and reincarnation. Theophany, by the way, is a personal encounter with a deity, like Joseph Smith. Druze believe that at the end of the cycle of rebirth, which is achieved through successive reincarnations, the soul is united with the cosmic mind. Druze believe there were 7 prophets at different periods in history: Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and Muhammad ibn Ismaili ad-Darazi. Druze traditions also honor and revere Salman the Persian, Al-Qadir, who identify as Elijah and reborn as John the Baptist and St. George. John, Luke, the evangelist, and others are as mentors and prophets. They also have a special affinity with Shuaib, the ancient Midianite prophet in Islam. He is sometimes identified with the biblical Jethro, although this is disputed. He's mentioned in the Quran a total of 11 times. And then we'll go into Jethro also. Moses' father-in-law, whom gave him the green coat. So I'll have to put this episode out. I didn't put out yet. I did a live talk yesterday with David Plate from MK Ultrasound and Bill John from Always Record. We're going to call the episode Always on Record because that's funny. But MK Ultrasound and Always Record and I we're talking about Egyptian magicians' influence on the tribe of Levi and Moses, particularly because Moses was raised, in Egypt with no knowledge of Hebrew traditions and had to learn them. You see him when he finds his baby cloak; it's red because it's the shroud of Levi. But then when he gets to his father-in-law, who's not yet his father-in-law, but gets to Jethro, who becomes his father-in-law, he receives his green tunic, which he starts to wear. Remember, green is the Arabic Ishmaelite color associated with, today, Islam. So I got this. All right, cool. Let me check these comments really quickly here. A lot going on there. Gonna learn how to use this software. Gonna get a secondary monitor. Gonna hide all the back screen nonsense you guys don't care about seeing. The deities teach us at the SEM, says Ezra Asian. I'm very interested in that. Tell us more about the deities teaching us, Ezra. So, boom, back. Even though the faith originally developed out of Ishmaelism, Druze do not identify as Muslims. The Druze faith is one of the major religious groups in the Levant, between 800,000 and 1 million adherents. They are found primarily in Lebanon, Syria, and Israel, with small communities in Jordan. It's interesting, by the way, we could look into this, how many different religions exist in Israel, because there are a ton, and, there's atheism is probably the most common. Orthodox Judaism is a smaller sect. Secular Judaism is pretty common. But then, of course, there's all these little groups like the Druze, and there are some, Islamic characters, but they're less, unless you're Palestinian. But there are, what's it called? The Baha'i. The Baha'i are common in Israel as well. So, in fact, there are a number of Baha'i in government in Israel. A small communities in Jordan. They make up 5.5% of the population of Lebanon, 3% of Syria, and 1.6% of Israel. There you go. The oldest and most densely populated Druze communities exist in Mount Lebanon, in the south of Syria, around Jabal al-Druze, literally the mountain of the Druze. The Druze community plays a critically important role in shaping the history of the Levant, where it continues to play a significant political role as a religious minority in every country in which they are found. They have frequently experienced persecution by different Muslim regimes, including contemporary Islamic extremism. Here is a clip from the archive of Israeli Channel 2. I'm going to turn down that sound. And I suppose this is what they look like. A number of Druze, Israeli Druze. 1.6% of Israel? That's a sizable portion, is it not? I mean, 1.6% is a pretty big number. I mean, that's interesting that there's this many people in Israel that identify as Druze. I definitely want to know more about this. Anybody know any Druze, please let me know. I'd love to learn. This is fascinating. I mean, and who are how powerful is this 1.6%? How influential, rather, are they in Israel? I'm so curious. What am I learning here? Like, what is the deal? Yeah, there's just some music behind it. I was wondering if they had words or something, but this is fascinating. They don't look like other people. To me, they kind of have their own look to them. They're not quite Arabic. They're not quite Semitic looking. I guess they kind of look a little Semitic, but they don't. They kind of almost look Egyptian, but not quite Egyptian. They're their own people. I guess Azerbaijani or Armenian is the closest I could come up with. Although North Armenian, probably. I don't know. So that's fantastic. All right, so now we know about the Druze. They exist. They suffer. Their symbol is the Order of the Eastern Star pentagram, very similar to the Masonic symbol. I think this is important because some people consider the Moorish sciences to be the Muslim sciences. They're not really. They're pre-Muslim sciences. The name Druze is derived from the name of Muhammad ibn Ishmael Nashtakin ad-Darazi, from Persian darzi, meaning seamster. Seamster is a great word. I think we need more seamsters than scenesters. Who was an early preacher. Although the Druze considered ad-Darazi a heretic, the name has been used to identify them, possibly by their historical opponents, as a way to attach their communities with ad-Darazi's poor reputation. Before becoming public, the movement was secretive and held closed meetings in what is known as the Sessions of Wisdom, better known in his regional name. I guess it's named after a guy. During this stage, a dispute occurred between... Okay, so I'm going to have to look into this, because I'm assuming this is the deal is Mansur had a secret name and was hiding his religion inside of it. Yeah, it looks like Ishmaelis were hiding Druze. Okay, good to know. And we'll get into that, but I didn't know it, and I have to read about it later. During this stage, a dispute occurred between ad-Darazi and Hamza bin Ali, mainly concerning ad-Darazi's Gulu exaggeration. It goes back to the Galat, which refers to the belief that God was incarnated in human beings, especially Ali and his descendants, including Al-Hakim bin Amir Allah, who was the caliph at the time. I think next time I'm going to have to go into something completely random, which is Arabic conjugation, because so much of this is changing the endings of words, and we're wondering how much of that is the same as the last word. Well, yeah, it could be the feminized or the masculine or the pretense or neuter version. To add ad-Darazi's naming himself the Sword of Faith, which led Hamza to write an epistle refuting the need for the sword to spread the faith, and several epistles refuting the belief of the Gulat. In 1016, ad-Darazi and his followers openly proclaimed their beliefs and called people to join them, causing riots in Cairo. There we go. And against the Unitarian movement, including Hamza bin Ali and his followers. This led to the suspension of the movement for 1 year and the expulsion of the ad-Darazi and his supporters. Although the Druze religion books describe ad-Darazi as the insolent one and as the calf who is narrow-minded and hasty, the name Druze is still used for identification and for historical reasons. In 1018, ad-Darazi was assassinated for his teachings. Some sources claim that he was executed by Al-Hakim be Amir Allah. Some authorities see in the name Druze a descriptive epithet derived from Arabic drasa, she who studies. Others have speculated that the word comes from the Persian word durazo, meaning bliss. See, this is interesting, because this gets back to, if Islam really meant bliss, then durazo certainly does. And more, that durazo possibly could refer to Sophism, like she who studies. Her name is Sophia, right? So, are from Shaka Hussein ad-Darazi, who was one of the early converts of the faith. In the early stages of the movement, the word Druze is rarely mentioned by historians, and in Druze religious texts, only the word Unitarian Muwahidun appears. The only early Arab historians who mention the Druze is the 11th century Christian scholar Yahweh of Antioch, who clearly refers to the heretical group created by ad-Darazi rather than the followers of Hamza ibn Ali. As the Western sources, Benjamin of Tudela, the Jewish traveler who passed through Lebanon in about 1165, was one of the first European writers to refer to the Druze by name. The word Dogzian, or Druzes, occurs in an early Hebrew edition of his travels, but it is clear that it is a scribal error by... No. Okay. A tribal error. Who's trying to call me? I have to check that out. I'm always curious. No worries. Yeah, it was Water Giant. Water Giant, what's up? I'm on the air right now. The number of Druze people worldwide is estimated to be between 800,000 and 1 million. I skipped ahead. Sorry. By that, it was a scribal error. By that as it may, be that as it may, he described the Druze as mountain dwellers, monotheists who believed in soul eternity and reincarnation. He also stated that they loved the Jews. So, sounds like the Druze. The number of Jewish, I'm going to go ahead and say, people worldwide between 800,000 and 1 million, with the vast majority residing in Levant. Druze people reside primarily in Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Jordan. University of Nebraska, Lincoln. Larger communities of Druze live outside the Middle East in Australia, Canada, Europe, Latin America, mainly Venezuela, Colombia, and Brazil, the United States, and West Africa. They are Arabs who speak the Arabic language and follow a social pattern very similar to those of other people of the Levant and the Eastern Mediterranean. In 2021, the largest Druze community outside of the Middle East are in Venezuela at 60,000, and in the United States at 50,000. According to the Los Angeles Times in 2017, there are about 30,000 in the United States, with the largest concentration in Southern California. We just love, California. We just love weird things. The Druze faith began as an Ismaili movement that was opposed to certain religious and philosophical ideologies that were present during the epoch. Okay. The faith was preached by Hamza ibn Ahmad, an Ismaili mystic and scholar from Kazan, Khorasan, in the Sassanid Empire. Okay, 1017, Hamza officially revealed the Druze faith and began to preach the Unitarian doctrine. Hamza gained support from the Fatimid Caliphate, Caliph al-Hakim bin Amir Allah, who issued a decree promoting religious freedom prior to the declaration of all divine call. This makes so much more sense why Islam taxed different religions more than being part of their church, because all of them were pseudo-Gnostic sects. And so they kind of had to just deal with it. Remove ye the causes of fear and estrangement from yourselves. Do away with the corruption of delusion and conformity. Be ye certain that the Prince of believers hath given unto ye free will, and hath spared you the trouble of disguising and concealing your true beliefs, so that when ye work ye may keep your deeds pure for God. He hath done thus, so that when you relinquish your previous beliefs and doctrines, ye shall not indeed lean on such causes of impotence and pretensions. By conveying to you the reality of his intention, the Prince of Believers hath spared you any excuse for doing so. He hath urged you to declare your belief openly. Ye are now safe from any hand which may bring harm upon you, unto you. Ye now may find rest in the assurance ye shall not be wronged. Let those who were present convey this message unto the absent, so that it may be known by both the distinguished and the common people. It shall thus become a rule to mankind, and divine wisdom shall prevail for all the days to come. Okay, another one, another religion. They just start to produce each other. Let me jump to another part. I'm going to go back to this, but I just can't help myself. Christianity and the Druze are Abrahamic religions that share historical tradition connection with some major theological differences. So someone asked me the term, why am I using Wikipedia? There's a couple of reasons I want to bring that up, actually. The reason I'm using Wikipedia, again, is, and I have a lot of other sources, and we could be using those books, and we'll get to them, but I'm treading the waters lightly on making, because every one of these videos, they're yellowing, saying that they're not okay, and they have to review them for AdSense and everything. So every single one of them. And then they go back and they watch them like, he's literally just quoting Wikipedia. We have a hard time. Okay, fine. We're going to let him get away with that. So part of it's that. I'm trying to make sure that I'm treading the waters lightly. The other thing is, it's really hard to argue with the very limited amount of information available on Wikipedia. I mean, there's so many other things we can supplant and add, and you can say, well, Wikipedia simply just didn't cover that. But it's if the religion itself, or the most and the most angry critic says, okay, this is pretty close to what I believe, then that's a good jumping off point. So I just wanted to bring that up again. You still can't hear me? Well, that's just tragic. The audio has gone down to just nothing. Someone was supposed to let me know if the audio was bad. Let me fix it again. Live track audio. Why didn't anyone tell me the audio was so low? Who's trying to call me? 1 second. Who's calling right now? Water Giant, was that you just now? Were you trying to call just now? I could try. Hold on. If Water Giant, you were trying to call on the show, let me give you a better number to call in on. I have an idea. What volume, brother? That's the problem. Okay, gosh, dude, that's embarrassing. Sorry. I'm glad you called to let me know. I don't know what happened. The volume should always be better than that. Let me even jump it up a little bit higher. I figured it out yesterday, but it didn't save the feature somehow. Okay, so that's even closer to the limit, right? Oh, brutal. Yeah, thank you very much, Eric David. Some people told me just now that the volume was crap. Was it crap the whole time? Or did it get worse when I walked away for a second to try to fix something? These are important things to know. Was the audio good and then low and then good again? Or was it low until just now? Yeah, I gotta fix all these things. This is sad. I'm sorry, guys. Manny is in southeastern Greece. Crap the whole time. Oh, Yost, I'm so sorry. This is the worst. I almost want to start it over. Okay, well, we're going to get through this one, and then tomorrow. It is what it is. It is what it is. You know what? It's punk rock, and we're going to get through the day, and then tomorrow we're going to do better. I'm sorry. I don't know what else I can say about that. That's horrible. And my face red. Thank you, Giant, for calling and making sure that it got fixed. Do you want to get on the show somehow? I can do that. I'm gonna make that work. That's a good experiment for me. Voice Google, because I figured this out and I'm pretty proud of myself. Google Voice. And then what number do I have? 1-831. I think that's the correct number. Try that number, Giant. If you call that number, I probably can get the audio through here. Now, the next thing I gotta do is turn on audio hijack to get the audio into my system, and I need to turn on Soundflower capture. Okay, so if you call then things will work. So try that number, Johnny. I just texted you that number. Tell me if that works. Just curious. Who knows? Who knows? Okay, in the meantime, though, while I wait to see if he's going to try to call in, I will read articles, because I'm not sure if he's trying to or if he was just trying to warn me. Okay. Back to the document. We got this. Christianity and Druze, Abrahamic religions, monotheistic religion based on the life and teaching of Jesus of Nazareth. Its adherents, known as Christians, believe that Jesus Christ... Well, okay, this is great. There's just going to be a whole thing about Jesus. We know about that. Jethro of Midian is considered an ancestor of the Druze, who revere him as the spiritual founder and chief prophet. The Druzism is a monotheistic and Abrahamic religion based on the teaching of Hamza ibn Ali ibn Ahmad and the sixth Fatimid Caliph al-Hakim bi Amir Allah, and the Greek philosophers such as Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, and Zeno of Citium. The Epistles of Wisdom is the foundational text of the Druze faith, even though the faith originally developed out of Ishmaelism. Let's see. Druze do not identify as Muslim and no longer consider themselves Muslim. The number of Jewish people worldwide is between 800,000 and 200 million, with the vast majority residing in the Levant. Historically, the relationship between the Druze Christians has been characterized by harmony, peaceful coexistence, with amicable relations between the two groups prevailing throughout history, with the exception of some periods, including the 1860 Mount Lebanon Civil War, which was, clearly a fight between the Druze and the Christians in 1860 that no one can hide, so they have to put it on the page. And the conversion of Druze to Christianity, used to be common practice in Levant regions. Over the centuries, a number of Druze embraced Christianity, such as some of Shihab dynasty members, an Arab family whose members served as the paramount tax farmers and local chiefs of Mount Lebanon from the early 18th to 19th century, as well as from the Abi Lama clan. Maronite Catholics and the Druze founded modern Lebanon in the early 18th century. Okay. So the Druze and the Catholics, Gnostics, were connected through a governing and social system known as the Maronite-Druze dualism. Really? I want that. That's what I want. In Mount Lebanon, Muda Surifate. Contact between Christian members of the Maronite, Eastern Orthodox, and Melkite and other churches, and the Druze led to the presence of mixed villages and towns in Mount Lebanon, Chuf Jabal al-Druze, the Galilee region, Mount Carmel, and Golan Heights. I'm going to move this over just in case I can see any of the comments say that there's a problem with the audio, because that was embarrassing. I'm sorry. Let me also make sure, I have to have my little window on, so at least you guys can see what's going on. All right, I'm trying my best. I got to get that stream deck set up so I can click buttons. Druze doctrine teaches that Christianity is to be esteemed and praised, as the gospel writers are regarded as carriers of wisdom. The Druze faith incorporates some... dang it, sorry. I can't help myself if I read something else. Some elements of Christianity, in addition to adoption of Christian elements on the epistles of wisdom. Both religions revere Jesus, John the Baptist, St. George. Really? St. George. Very interesting. Slays dragons. He's a religious figure. Elijah, the prophet. I just watched an entire episode yesterday of a rabbinical talk on Elijah and the period of Elijah. Luke, the evangelist, Job, and other common figures. Figures in the Old Testament, such as Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and Jethro, are considered important to the philosophy, prophets of the God in the Druze faith, being among the 7 prophets who appeared in different periods of history. Chuck is saying St. George came from the Middle East. Let's, never just look at a name we say, oh, I know who that is, and just not study it deeper. Good point. Let's go deeper into St. George. It makes sense he would come from the Middle East. I can buy that. I just haven't looked into it yet. In terms of religious comparison, mainstream Christian denominations do not believe in reincarnation or the transmigration of the soul, contrary to the beliefs of the Druze. On the other hand, reincarnation is paramount tenet in the Druze faith. Christianity teaches evangelism often through the establishment of missions, unlike the Druze, who do not accept converts to their faith. Marriage outside the Druze faith is rare and is strongly discouraged. Similarities between the Druze and the Christians include the commonalities in their views of monogamous marriage, as well as the forbidding of divorce and remarriage. In addition to the beliefs that oneness of God and theophany, the Druze faith incorporates some elements of Christianity and other religious beliefs. Christianity does not require male circumcision, with covenant theology teaching the Christian sacrament of baptism fulfills the Israelite practice of circumcision, both being signs and seals of the covenant of grace. Well, that's good. Most mainstream Christian denominations currently maintain a neutral position on the practice of non-religious circumcision. Male circumcision is commonly practiced in many predominant Christian countries, unfortunately, and many Christian communities, and in the Coptic Orthodox Church, the Ethiopian Orthodox and Eritrean Orthodox Tewahedo Church, it is a rite of passage. While male circumcision is widely practiced by the Druze, the procedure is practiced as a cultural tradition and has no religious significance in the Druze faith. Some Druze do not circumcise their male children, good for them, and refuse to observe the practice. Druze doctrines teaches that Christianity is to be esteemed and praised, as the gospel writers are regarded as carriers of wisdom. Both religions revere Jesus, John the Baptist. Yeah, we got it. Perspective on Jesus. Both faiths give prominent place to Jesus. Centric faith considered an important prophet. The Druze venerate Jesus, the son of Joseph and Mary, and his 4 disciples. Chuck says basically they're heretic Shiites. They came from the Babist tradition. Okay, well, we're gonna get into Baha'i and Babism eventually. I don't know if you can see how many tabs I have. It's still a lot. I was thinking I would just get through it once. It's going to take forever. The Druze venerate Jesus, the son of Mary, blah, blah, blah. Doctrines include the beliefs that Jesus was born of a virgin named Mary, performed miracles, died of crucifixion. Druze doctrines include that Hamza ibn Ali took Jesus down from the cross and allowed him to return to his family. That's an interesting one. That's very Scorsese, very Last Temptation of Christ. Druze believe that the Hamza ibn Ali was the reincarnation of Jesus, and that Hamza ibn Ali is the true Messiah, who directed the deeds of the Messiah Jesus, the son of Joseph and Mary. But when Jesus, the son of Joseph and Mary, strayed from the path of the true Messiah, Hamza filled the hearts of the Jews with hate for him, and for that reason they crucified him, according to the Druze manuscripts. Okay, wait. And the Catholics are good with this guy? I mean, this what? They're saying, okay, well, Jesus wasn't the real prophet. We're friends with Christians, but Jesus wasn't. Imagine this: you got the Druze and the Christians, okay, and they're meeting each other for the first time, and the Druze and the Christians say, well, what do you believe? And then one says, I believe in Jesus and God, or oh, we do too, okay, but one says, you don't get it. Like, I don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Okay, well, we're used to that as Catholics. We've dealt with some Muslims who believe he was just a prophet. No, you don't get it. I believe that Jesus screwed up really badly and had to be replaced by this other guy who's really the prophet. And that, in other words, Jesus was, the bad. I mean, right? How else? We really like him. He did a really good job up until a certain point when he just screwed up really badly. What? I mean... yeah, that's where people would kill each other. I think that's how religions kill each other. Interesting. Perspective on Elijah, John the Baptist, St. George. Both religions revere John the Baptist. I mean, okay, but are you going to talk about it? Are you going to explain what about John the Baptist? I want to hear more about St. George to the perspective of them. A figure not named in the Quran, the Qadir, is honored as the prophets, mentors. They venerate Elijah. He's considered the central figure in Druzism. And due to his importance in Druzism, the settlement of the Druze on Mount Carmel had partly to do with Elijah's story and devotion. There are 2 large Druze towns on the east slopes of Mount Carmel, Daliat, Al-Carmel, and Isfaya. The Druze regard the cave of Elijah as holy, and they identify Elijah as El-Qadir, the green prophet, who symbolizes water and life, a miracle who cures the sick. Druze, like some Christians, believe that Elijah came back as John the Baptist or as St. George. Okay, so somebody going to send me a link to this, but I'm going to have to etymologically search these books and look into where Christians think that Jesus came back as St. George. I'm very curious. I hadn't heard that. I should know more. I'm sorry. Chuck is like all about this. Thank you, Chuck. You should come on and just talk about St. George sometime. I'm going to get a number going. That's going to be my new thing. That way you can call. I mean, that's what we're talking with Giant. Set it up so people can call in every once in a while when I have a question. Because if someone's like, ooh, I know this one, I should be listening to you. St. George is described as a prophetic figure in the Druze religion. Now we're getting somewhere. And in some sources, he's identified with Elijah or Mars Elias, and in others as El-Qadir. Druze believe that Elijah came back as John the Baptist and as St. George, and the Druze believe versions of the story of Al-Qadir was syncretized with the story of St. George and the dragon. Okay, wait. So, in other words, they have a St. George before St. George and the dragon. Is there a version of this where St. George doesn't fight the dragon? Is there like a Qumran document about St. George? What is happening? Ziyarat al-Nabi al-Qadir is an Israeli Druze festival called Ziyara. I'm going to that. That's going to be a bucket list for me. I have to go to a Ziyarat in Israel. January 25th, ladies and gentlemen, everything in between, let's go to that. Which is officially recognized in Israel as a public holiday for the Druzes. So you mean like in general, like you can get a day off of school because of this 1.6%? Druzes matter, dude. The celebration starts on the 24th of January, probably I'm assuming in the evening, and concludes on the 25th in January, which many religious leaders from all religions in Israel, all political leaders, occasionally also the prime minister, coming to congratulate the Israeli Druze community during their festivals at the Maqam al-Qadir in Kfar Yassif. Religious leaders or sheiks from Mount Carmel, from the Galilee and the Golan Heights, take the opportunity to discuss religious issues. The Grotto, the cave of Elijah that appears in the Bible where the prophet Elijah took shelter during his journey into the wilderness. The exact location of the cave is unknown. There is a cave of Elijah on Mount Carmel, about 40 meters above the sea level in Haifa. For centuries, it has been a pilgrimage destination for Jewish, Christian, and Druze and Muslim people alike. Another cave associated with Elijah is nearby, under the altar of the main church of the Stella Maris Monastery, also on Mount Carmel. Yeah, and we'll get into, and it's funny because we were going to be talking a lot more about Manny. I don't know how far do I have to go till I get back to Manny? Did I here's the Gospel of Manny. We might as well go in there because I haven't even done that yet, and I was gonna. Excuse me. The Living Gospel in 3D, also known as the Great Gospel, Gospel of the Living, and other variants, was a 3rd century Gnostic Gospel written by Manny. It was originally written in Syriac and called the Evangelion. Great show. From the Greek, gospel meaning good news, and was one of the 7 original scriptures of Manicharism. A number of fragments are preserved in the Cologne Manny Codex, which was something we were talking about yesterday. We didn't quite jump hard into, and it's still up there, but I'm going to just make sure it's the next thing we go to. Discovered in 1969. Great year, Age of Aquarius. Who's not going to discover a new religious text from ancient Gnostic orders in 1969? On manuscript fragments found in Turan, beginning in 1904. Found on the Turan is an East Autonomous Region of Xinjiang, so, Uyghur. Some Coptic manuscript fragments recovered from at Fayum appeared to contain a sort of commentary or homily on the gospel. Al-Barudi, who still had access to the full text, commented that it was a gospel of a special kind. Unlike any other of the Gospels of the Christians, the Manichaeans insisted that theirs was the only true gospel, and that the various Gospels of the Christians misrepresented the truth about the Messiah. Very, Joseph Smith. There is a tendency in historical scholarship to confuse Manny's living gospel with another of his works, known as the Ertenk, or the Ardhung, the Arjang, in ancient Persian Artha Thantha, meaning message of truth, or the picture book. The Ardhung was, in fact, a picture book, giving the name of icon. Oh, yeah, I get it. In Greek and Coptic. This was a book containing illustrations to accompany and facilitate the understanding of Manny's cosmology. Photius, or Pseudo-Photius, comments on the text, saying that it contained falsified accounts of some of the accounts of Jesus, while Peter of Sicily insisted that it contained no such material. It is known that the Gospels had 22 parts, each labeled by different letters of the Aramaic language alphabet. The combination of the two Turan fragments allow the reconstruction of the text of the first part, Aleph. The sections deal with the nature of the kings of the world of light who reside at the navel of the world, but is also present on the whole earth, from without as from within, having no limits except with where the earth borders on that of his enemy, the kingdom of darkness. Schielmelcher suggests tentatively that the text may have been designed as a gospel of the Gnostic type, perhaps intended to comment or to replace the Christian gospel. So, check this out. The opening words of the living gospel of Manny, a fragment of the most beloved Son, the Savior Jesus, the head of all these gifts, who is a refuge for the holy and is a blessing for the wise, is exalted, may be praised. The maiden of light, the chief of all wisdom, is exalted, may she be praised. The holy religion, by the power of the Father, by the blessing of the Mother, and by the wisdom of the Son, is exalted, may it be praised. Well-being and blessing to the sons of goodness and to the speakers and hearers of the true word. Praise and honor the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit and the holy recollection. He, Manny, teaches the word of the living gospel for eye and ear, and he preaches the fruit of righteousness. I, Manny, the apostle of Jesus, the friend, by the will of the Father, the true God of him, by whom I have come. Everything that is and everything that was and everything will be is by his power. The Blessed One will receive the message. The wise ones understand it. The strong ones will take on wisdom of the wise. I mean, it's very, come on. This is very, it's an all-in-one. You got your Christianity, you got your Islam, you got your Buddhism. It's perfect. Who doesn't love that? Cologne Manny Codex is the codex that we found in 69, purchased for the Institute für Altertumskunde at the University of Cologne in 1969. And so, we can look into examples of this if I type in archive. Ideally, it'll just show up on the archive, right? There you go. So now this is how you take Wikipedia and you use it for some good instead of evil. Now you can go to the archive.org, you pull out the book, and you can read through the 1969 translation. And of course, it's not going to be perfect, but it's 1969. So, look into the guys studying this. Yeah. A memory man just shorted BTC. Congrats and sorry. I can't tell. I think you meant that in a good way, but you might have meant you were shorted. I'm not sure. Hopefully you're doing okay. Great. So we have the Greek on one side and the Latin on the other side. So Manny is now speaking for the sake of there's a lot of parenthetical explanations about the Gospel of Manny. So that's something to consider. Turpan, Tulifan. Here's the city today. A Chinese-controlled former Arabic Turanian region. Yeah. Some of these buildings are you can tell too, this was not always proletariat, anti-bourgeoisie China. It's become that here. But that building was clearly, this is built around, this building is clearly a much older building. Let me zoom out a little bit to make sure I get this right. Where is that? I just saw you. There we go. No? Where was the thing? There it is. There it is. This thing might be just this new building, but it's clearly more interesting. And the fact that it's written in Arabic. They're not only writing in Chinese in this area. So, okay. So Manicharism, we looked into Manny and his Gnostic religion a bit. Maybe we can go also to religious practices, beliefs, cosmology, world of light, second creation. So the idea that the creation creates manifestations of next layer creations, that God reflects on the creation and learns and becomes the next incarnation of their own self, that God is growing through our growth, the world of darkness, the prince of darkness. That's pretty scary. Their offspring, Adam and Eve. His 5 evil kingdoms, evil counterpart of the 5 elements of light. The lowest being the kingdom of darkness. His son, the evil Antichrist, the snake shoulder, an evil figure in Persian mythology. His son's mate, who I'm assuming is some other part of the snake. Their offspring, Adam and Eve. So in other words, their offspring is evil. Giant, fallen angels, abortions, those that fell, egregori, watchers, biblical angels, watchers, relationships to the fallen angels. I mean, if you want to get into Gnosticism or into the fallen angels, the book of Enoch, check out Manny, because Manny seems to be obsessed with this stuff. And their entire religion seems to be based on the idea that this was the more true aspects, that the esoteric and the mystical aspects were the more true, and the humanist aspects were, we already have that. We don't need that in religion. Who needs that? So, the elect, the terms were recorded by the Augustine of Hippo, St. Augustine. Manny's, I think, wait, was he part of the Druzians at one point? That wouldn't be too surprising because, Augustine went through some weird times. I think his mother was St. Monica, the patron saint of failed marriages, disappointing children, as we mentioned earlier. He was a pantheist. So that could have been, I could see it. Okay, let's save that for a moment later to look into. Manny's designated successor, seated as patriarch at the head of the church, originally in Ctesiphon from the 9th century of Samarkand. 2 notable leaders were Marcinos Sicianos, the first successor of Manny, and Abu Hilal al-Dayuri. So you can see these are very different kinds of names. So we're going to look into that too, because this guy was probably from a different area. Maybe more Chinese. Yeah, it looks like that would be the case. So that's very interesting. You have people that are neither one from this area, both from further west or east of it. They post the prayers at noon, mid-afternoon, just after sunset, and at nightfall. So there's 4 times, and the Muslims pray 5 times. That's pretty impressive. Primary sources: an image of Buddha as one of the primary prophets on a Manichaean pictorial. So if any of you are thinking about Buddhism's connection to Christianity, it fits in with Manism. They're very, Manichaeism is convinced that Buddha was one of the prophets, biblical prophets that happened on the way to Christ, kind of a John the Baptist Siddhartha, but different. But John the Baptist would have been cooler if he started out as a prince and ended up, naked. That's his whole deal. When you do the Middle East and look at the structures, they're obviously old. Yeah, it's true. But also this idea, I think it's so much more easy to believe everything is super ancient. This idea everything is so ancient that it's beyond, and it's acceptable. You can believe in NASA. You can believe that things are 20, 100, 400,000 years old. The pyramids are 100,000 years old. They're okay with that. As soon as you say that these were built within the last, 2,000 years or something like that, people start to freak out, which is, I'll be honest, I'm more convinced that things are more recent. There are resets that go back further, and we can show examples of that, but, look at the Mayan calendar as an example. The resets that far back are different, That's my opinion anyway. Some people think that everything is brand new. I don't think that either. There are mentions of Zoroastrian divinities such as Ramazda, Angra Mainyu. So Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, everything makes its way into Manism. Text discovered by German researcher near Turan in now what is Xinjiang, China during the early 1900s. However, from the vantage point of the original Syriac descriptions as quoted by Theodore Bar Konai and outlined above, Manicharism may better be described as a unique phenomenon of Aramaic Babylonia, occurring in proximity to 2 other new Aramaic religious phenomena: Talmudic Judaism and Mandaism. Did we do Mandism yet? We're gonna have to go into that. Which also appeared in Babylonia in roughly the 3rd century. The original but now lost 6 sacred books of Manichaeism were composed in Syriac Aramaic and translated into other languages to help spread the religion. That's a bummer. They lost their books. As their spread of the East, Manichaeism writings passed through Middle Persian, Parthian, Sogdian, Tocharian, and ultimately Uyghur and Chinese translations. As they spread to the West, they are translated into Greek, Coptic, and Latin. Henning describes how the translation process evolved and influenced Manichaeism of Central Asia. Beyond a doubt, Sogdian was the national language of the majority of clerics and propagandists of the Manichaean faith. What is Sogdian anyway? We'll have to look at that. An Iranian language. And to a lesser degree, Parthian occupied the position held in Latin and medieval churches. The founder of Manichaeism had employed Syriac, his own language, as his medium, but conveniently had written at least one book in Middle Persian, and it is likely that he himself had arranged for the translations of some of or all of his numerous writings from Syriac into Middle Persian. Thus, the Eastern Manichaeans found themselves entitled to dispense with the study of Mani's original writings and to continue themselves to read the Middle Persian editions. It presented small difficulty to them to acquire a good knowledge of the Middle Persian language, owing to its affinity with Sogdian. The Gospel of Manny, the Treasure of Life, the Treatise, the Secret. I'm going to have to read the Secret, of course. The Book of the Giants. Well, let's do that. The Epistles, later discovered at Qumran. Oh, you mean the Qumran parchments and Manny are connected? They have to be, don't they? Don't they? Just kind of have to be. Man, it just looks like there's 3 or 4 of these things that are all open together. Hold on. Too far. And also, where'd Mandism go? I had that somewhere. Let me look at that in a second, too. Mandaism is a Gnostic, monotheistic, and ethnic religion. Its adherents, the Mandeans, revere Adam, Abel, Seth, Enos, Noah, Shem, Aram, and especially John the Baptist. Mandeans consider Adam, Seth, Noah, Shem, and John the Baptist prophets, with Adam being the founder of the religion and John being the greatest and final prophet. The Mandeans speak an Eastern Aramaic language known as Mandaic. The name Mandean comes from Aramaic manda, meaning knowledge. With the Middle East being outside their community, the Mandeans are more commonly known as the Arabic Shuba or Subi or Sabians. Oh, that's kind of like, I think of something there, you know? I think of Sabians. No, I'm thinking of Saban from the Power Rangers. The term Suba is derived from the Aramaic root related to baptism. The Neo-Mandaic is Sabi. In the Quran, the Sabians are mentioned 3 times alongside alongside the Jews, Christians as peoples of the book, which I think is names mentioned in the Quran. That could be. According to Turan, J. Buckley, and other scholars who specialize in Mandaism, Mandaean originated about 2,000 years ago in the Palestine-Israel region, and they moved east due to persecution. Other claim a southwestern Mesopotamian origin. However, some scholars take the view that Mandaeism is older and dates back to pre-Christian times. Mandaeism asserts that their religion predates Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as a monotheistic faith. Mandaeism believes that they are the direct descendants of Shem, Noah's son in Mesopotamia, and they also believe that they are the direct descendants of John the Baptist, original Nestorian Mandean disciples in Jerusalem. Oh, the Nazarenes. Got it. Religion has primarily been practiced around the lower Karun, Euphrates, and Tigris, and the rivers that surround the Shat al-Arab waterway, part of the southern Iraq and Khuzestan province in Iran. Worldwide, there are believed to be about 60 to 70,000 Mandeans, so not nearly as many. I think it's like 1 in 100 compared to the Manichaeism, if I get the numbers right. Until the Iraq War, almost all of them lived in Iraq. Many Mandean Iraqis have since fled their country based on the turmoil created by the 2003 invasion of Iraq and subsequent occupations by the U.S. Armed Forces, and the related rise in sectarian violence by extremists. By 2007, the population of Mandeans in Iraq had fallen to approximately 5,000. Well, brutal. The Mandeans had remained separate and intensely private. Reports of them and their religion had come primarily from outsiders, particularly from Julius Heinrich Petermann, an Orientalist, as well as the Nicholas Sufi, a Syrian Christian who was the French vice-consul in Mosul in 1887, and British cultural anthropologist Lady E.S. Drower. There is an early, if highly prejudiced, account by the French traveler Jean-Baptiste Tavernet from 1650. The term Mandaic or Mandeism comes from the classical Mandaic Mandaya and appears in Neo-Mandaic as Mandayana on the basis of cognates and other Aramaic dialects. Semanticists such as Mark Lidzbarski and Rudolf Makuk have translated the term Manda, from which Manda derives, as knowledge. Okay, I'll give it. Connected perhaps with Mada, characteristics assimilation to the following consonant, medial, hence becoming. This etymology suggests the Mandeans may well be the only sect surviving from late antiquity to identify them explicitly as Gnostics. Other scholars derive the term Mandia from Manda de Hayi, knowledge of life. I think it has to do with measurement. I'm going to look into that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I recall. This is being able to, account for and measure, understand something so well you can measure it. The great life, or the great living God, or from the word Beth Manda, which means a building. Okay, which the cultural masonry really is the cultic hut in which many Mandean ceremonies are performed, such as baptism, which is the central sacrament on Mandean religion. Well, if they like John the Baptist, I suppose that makes sense. According to the Mandean text, the Haran Gawati in the Nestorian Mandeans were disciples of John the Baptist. They left Judea, Palestine, and migrated to Media in the 1st century A.D. Look into this more because, again, Media, we think of the witch of Medes in Mediterranean getting its name. Where does Mediterranean, medicine, media, etc.? It all gets the Magi, measure, mafia, masonry, it all really comes from Medea. So look into Medea, we'll get into that. But we're nearly at the end of today because I can only do. I know that some people have been saying they can only watch so much of these at a time. So I'm gonna do 90-minute ones instead of 3-hour ones, and then we're gonna make them. Eventually, I'm gonna start doing 20-minute pieces. It'll be amazing if I could do a 20-minute piece, right? The reason given for this was the persecution of Jerusalem. The immigrants went first to Haran, probably Haran in modern-day Turkey, or Haran and then the Median Hills in Iran, before finally sitting down in the southern provinces of Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq. During the Parthian rule, Mandeans flourished under royal persecution. This protection did not last with Sassanid royal protection. This protection did not last with the Sassanid Bahram I ascending to the throne and his high priest Kartir persecuting all non-Zoroastrian religions. Here's another image of their faith. That looks like something straight out of New Mexico, but it also apparently is from Iraq. So very interesting that the styles of art are literally that classic. And then here's a picture of their religious book, which is pretty sweet. Looks kind of nice. Kind of want that, don't you? And then this is beyond, what is this? This cross with Obi-Wan Kenobi's robe on it, I guess. There's just nobody there. And we've all seen the Abraxas before, the Gnostics and their eternal sun, I, Alpha, Omega. So, but yeah, does this not? And the abitur does look very, looks very almost Ashkenazi or Anastasi. This is on Far East, Far West, Middle East. There you have it. So in the Quran, they're mentioned three times, along with the Jews and the Christians. Valentinianism. Let's go into this a bit. So, Mandean baptismal formula was adopted by the Valentinian Gnostics in Rome. Sethian. Many parallels between the Sethian Gnostics text from the Nag Hammadi library, which is kind of the thing, is that you can kind of almost validate some of the Jung Codex by the fact that the Mandeans exist. Samaritan Baptist sects, and connections to Manicharism, as we looked before, that there's a lot of the data that we have on Mandeism really comes from the fact that they can corroborate things the Manichaeists are doing while not being particularly connected to them, as far as we know. I mean, for the most part, they are isolated. Oh, yes, and may the 4th be with you. That's funny. It's my first Star Wars reference of the day without knowing it was about Star Wars. But yes, may the 4th be with you, always. George Lucas' obsession with the Mayan calendar is why he sold Star Wars accordingly. Look into that. I think that's pretty interesting. George Lucas had a huge freak out about the Mayan calendar. And granted, it makes sense because he named several of his characters after Mayan astrology symbols. Like Skywalker is one of the main astrology symbols. So there may be more Mandeans than there were before, but there are far less in Iraq. Hidden and unaccounted for Iranian Mandeans in Iran are as high as 60,000. So people that are hiding the fact that they are Mandeans, there are tons. There are tons of people that are Mandeans. There could be even 100,000 more. And Mandeism has influenced areas it's around in a way to make sure that their religion is acceptable. They've made parts of other religions start to folklorishly accept this idea. Let me jump completely to something unrelated / totally related. Cunning folk traditions of the Latter-day Saint movement. Cunning folk traditions, sometimes referred to as folk magic, were entwined with early culture and practice of the Latter-day Saint movement. These traditions were widespread in unorganized religion in the parts of Europe and America where the Latter-day Saint movement began in the 1820s and 1830s. Practices of the culture, including folk healing, folk medicine, folk magic, and divination, remnants of these have been incorporated or rejected to varying degrees into the liturgy, culture, and practice of early Latter-day Saints. You can start to look at some of these sacred geometrical, Kabbalistic math patterns, and you can look at the Jupiter talisman, and you'll find the most quick way to describe Islam or Latter-day Saints are as Gnostic. They are Gnostic. This is a Gnostic sect. And to differentiate themselves, once they started to have authority, they would say, no, these other groups are more Gnostic. We are just the only legitimate form of Gnosticism. The Smith family practiced a form of folk religion, which, although not uncommon in this time and place, was criticized by many contemporary Protestants as either fraudulent illusions of or workings of the devil. Both Joseph Smith Sr. and at least 2 of his sons worked at money digging using seer stones in mostly unsuccessful attempts to locate lost items and buried treasure. Treasure-seeking activities, a visit of Angel Moroni, the salamander, notable examples, scrying mirrors, peeping stones, early revelations, pearl of great price, doctrines of covenant, the Nauvoo period, astrological charts and healing remedies created by Steele and for his grandchildren's illness, included in a August 20, 1880 letter. So, astrological charts and healing remedies using star work. These are the kinds of things the LDS were carrying on. So it's pretty easy to say if you want to look into some of this stuff, you don't have to go directly to Aleister Crowley, and freak yourself out. You can go right into the Latter-day Saints. You can go right into Mandeism. You can look into Manny, and you can look into... Let me find him again. Manny is up here. Yeah. You can look into Manny, and you can find out a lot of things about Gnosticism and its connections. And the ways things are looked at by other religions are very interesting. So somebody who is converted to Christianity, but they only understand it from their Shintoist or Buddhist or Native American perspective, they're going to have a very different perspective of the religion, and it might not be evil, it might not be wrong, it might just be stuff no one's thought about yet because it's just a little deeper. So I think it's important to check out. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that talk. I want to try to save the rest of that for tomorrow. I've got an entire other episode tomorrow that I want to do on more Gnosticism, more of the connections between modern religious movements, some of the kind of forgotten but still existing today Gnostic movements that are in Turkey or in Iran. But I'm glad we learned about the Druze. Let me check out any of these comments that you guys have sent, I should probably check on the actual web, because sometimes the comments don't tell me what I've got. Okay. Yeah, well, volume is fixed now, so thank you for that. I will fix the volume from now on, and I think that covers it. Let me know if there's anything you guys want me to cover. Send me links in the andreas.me, tartarynova.com. I guess we'll just really quickly do a closing thing of that. Let me go to the display window. Okay, tartarynova.com. Click on the Tartary Discord link, or if you're cool, if you're able, go to the Tartary Matrix community or contact, and you can get in touch with me. You can also do this from exertus.com or andreas.me. You can find me. And if you go there, please help keep this going. If you can, I appreciate that. It will remain free for now. If you guys want to send more super chats, I will read them on the show. I think that's a good way to do it, is if you guys have super chats. I can answer the things that matter regardless, but super chats, if you want to have your message in the show, makes sense. So I'm trying to figure it out, wrestling with all this. Thank you for coming. Any suggestions, criticisms, and help. I appreciate you guys helping me turn my volume up. I appreciate that a lot. So take care, everybody. And yeah, thank you, Aaron, for sharing on Twitter. Everybody, if you can share these videos in whatever Reddit or Facebook group or Discord you're in, that'd be awesome. I've noticed the Ewing Junior talk it's pretty successful. It's had like 20,000 views almost now. I'd like to have more videos getting viewed by everybody, so help me out with that.